Crypto's been around quite some time now, but do you realize how early you still are? Less than 7% of the total population is invested in crypto. And I just want you to keep that in mind as we're going to discuss what we're going to discuss in today's video. And the next 2 weeks are very important. 2 big weeks ahead for crypto in Congress. Right now, Ethereum around 90% away from all-time highs. The question is, does it have the power, the stamina, the setup to make its way to all-time highs and bring altcoins with it into a bull market and beyond all-time highs? Cardano on the zoomed out weekly. The setup is there. Will it do what it's done many times previously? That is the bulls shocking the bears out of nowhere. Hit the subscribe, hit the like on the way in. If you're not in our intelligence system, check out our sale that we have going on right now. 40% off if you're a macro investor. Let's start with this. We've got 2 big weeks ahead for crypto in Congress. Next Wednesday, the Senate Banking Committee tackles a market structure hearing. Here's the thing. A lot of people are like, man, Trump is terrible for crypto. The new administration is terrible for crypto. Look what Eleanor said here. Wild to think that this time last year, we were still waiting on SEC to move on spot ETH ETFs. Do you realize the last administration basically was just like, crypto's a scam, SEC trying to shut down crypto, attacking us nonstop. We have in store some of the most bullish headlines coming out of this administration. We have an administration bullish on Bitcoin and altcoins. This is a macro game. This is taking some patience, clearly, but that's from a business cycle perspective. This has nothing to do with Trump and his policy. This policy and the legislation we're getting ready to set up for is, if you really want the tens of trillions to come into crypto, this is that next step. So this is very important to pay attention to what is happening right now. The House has dubbed the week of July 14th Crypto Week. Just think about this. The week the Genius Act, Clarity Act, and anti-CBDC Act will be voted on for passage in the lower chamber. Like, these are our headlines right now. That blows me away. That is crazy to me to think about that. So the story continues. A new poll shows crypto investors are largely backing real Trump policies on digital assets. So many investors, probably some investors that were just not on board yet, they're coming on board because what they're seeing. It's not just institutions that want that regulatory clarity. There are many people in retail that also want that regulatory clarity. So this is what's happening in the next couple of weeks. What I really want to point to your attention is something that I think we should focus on, and that is this. With all these things that I just went over, these acts that are coming into play, the other day, Senator Loomis just introduced a bill to end double taxation on staking and mining. I'm bringing this up because as we go into like crypto week or the next 2 weeks of all of this talk about, legislation, I think we're going to hear a lot about this. And I think this will be so big. This is something that, as somebody that's in the staking game, right? What this will do is massive. If this gets to President Trump's desk, it means that staking rewards would not be taxed when received as income, but only when sold. And so this is as I understand it, but just imagine that. The days will be over where you get your staking rewards, you have to pay income tax on that, and then you eventually want to sell your staking rewards, you have to pay tax on that. That will unlock a lot of bullishness. Let me just say that. So I want to keep an eye on that. But let's cruise over. Let's start talking about Ethereum and Cardano and altcoins. ETH ETF inflow, $148 million. $148 million. This was basically posted yesterday, but so this is in regards to July 3rd data. BlackRock bought 85 million Ethereum on July 3rd. So let's talk about Ethereum and Cardano charts and altcoins. And I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, itrustcapital. If you are a macro investor, everybody, you have to check out itrustcapital and their products. You want to trade crypto within your IRA on the macro. You want to move altcoins to Bitcoin. When Bitcoin dominance finally starts falling, you can do this within your crypto IRA tax-free. But really what I wanted to highlight was this. This was the other day. iTrust posted this. Did you hear? Solana staking is live at itrustcapital. So we're talking about staking, right? In this video, we're going to see all these altcoins unlocking in terms of being able to stake your crypto in the itrustcapital IRA. So this is something I think a lot of people have been waiting for, iTrust users. And now you can just see, because of the pro-crypto legislation that's happening, this tool, this feature, and this product within the itrustcapital suite of products is becoming unleashed. So check out itrustcapital if you're a macro-minded investor. Hit the link below, and let's go over to the Ethereum charts. So let me just say this. I know we've been waiting. We've been tracking this entire move. It gets repetitive, but I just want to present a piece of data to you, and then you make up your mind what you think. Keeping in mind everything we just talked about from a legislation standpoint, keeping in mind that the big beautiful bill just got passed, right? What that's going to do in terms of the money printers, the money printer narrative, the Fed getting ready to lower interest rates, quantitative tightening slowing down. Keep all those things in mind as I show you this. So what I was looking at was the compression of these moving averages, obviously, right? Look at this, the 50, the 200, the 20. And I was like, when on this chart has that really happened? And I first want to point out to you what a top of a bull market looks like. Look at the separation of the 50, the 20, and then the 200 all the way down here. And then boom, bear market. So that's the top of a bull into a bear. People are like, the bull market's over right now. And we are at the exact flip side of that. There are so many data points on the macro to evaluate when trying to spot a bull or a bear market. But I can tell you one thing, we're not setting up for a bear market. If you're just studying technicals, what I want to show you is when's the last time we actually had a similar and really a very unique time, a similar setup in terms of the moving averages. It was here exiting the bear market. That's where Ethereum is right now. We're in that territory. We're like exiting bear market territory in terms of these indicators. What I mean by that is this. Look at the 20 right here, the green, below the 200 in red, and then the 50 kind of trending down towards the 2. And most importantly, look at Ethereum making this move to the 50 and seeing like 2 months of resistance. Let's go look now. Here we are, the 20 below all moving averages, the 200 in the middle. There's the 50 with Ethereum seeing around 2 months of consolidation at that area. We have such a similar setup. What I really want to draw to your attention is this was kind of the move of consolidation before that next swing high. And then we consolidated for a higher low, and then we went into a really extreme move. What I want to point to your attention is if we get a similar breakout as this one, why that's so big is we would be breaking into the apex. We would be turning this entire multi-year triangle into a busted pattern, meaning fake breakout to the downside, pull back into the apex, right? And then the busted pattern is a story of continuation to the upside. So it was like a fake out to the downside and the upside actually happens. That's a busted pattern. And yes, we might get that move to the upside and then there's resistance there, right? We have to look at what consolidation might look like there. But that setup, if you look at back here, is becoming so on point. And if you look at the RSI, if this move happens, we get this RSI breakout above this lower high trend line that you see in yellow. This is going to be, in my view, the beginning of altcoin bull market right there. The beginning of the Ethereum breakout towards all-time highs right there. Lastly, on the Ethereum chart, then we'll look at Cardano. You see the stock RSI got overbought, consolidating. We just looked at back here, this resistance at the 50-week. Look what happened at that resistance at the 50-week. Overbought, consolidating, and then boom, the next power move. This could be the setup that's happening right now for Ethereum. So please keep it in mind. And if you're thinking, all right, well, if we had that move on the stock RSI, right, and we're making a move, that could be the end of it all, right? Well, no, because guess what? If you look at the beginning of the last bull market for Ethereum, that's exactly what happened at the beginning of the bull market move. There's that swing high, some consolidation. There's that consolidation back to oversold, and then parabolic. Everybody, the technicals are lining up very nicely, especially as it overlaps with all of the other macroeconomic stuff. So let's go look at ADA. What I wanted to discuss in ADA was not too much of like short-term price speculation, but I did want to look at some macro indicators and mainly the moving averages, kind of similar to Ethereum. Because here's what Cardano does. It sets up where it's just like looking terrible, like it's all failed, and then it just moves. This has been the story for so long for ADA, right? Bottom of the bear market, coming out of the bear market, new consolidation. Now this new consolidation, even last cycle, this is what happened. It's looking like it's going to fail, then boom. Looking like it's going to fail, then boom. Looking like it's going to fail, right? So this is like, that's why these like curves, and this is just for visualization. This isn't like specific analysis. what I have happening here is not specific analysis of exactly how it's going to play out, but it's for visualization of how the structure of ADA continually compresses, gets suppressed, and then boom, breakout. Now, the moving averages play into this story because right now we have the 50 moving average crossing above the 200 moving average. This, anytime you have like this 200 is like crossing below the 50, it's like, oh no, that's so bearish. It's the exact opposite. That is a very bullish move for the beginning of a bull market, right? And so what we'd see if we get a beginning of a bull market is not only the 50 crossing above that 200, right? And so here's the 200 down here and might just start kind of leveling back up. If we get a bull market, that is, we'll see the 200 maybe tap the 50, maybe briefly cross below the 50, and then cross back above the 50 in a bull market. So this would be the 200. Here would be the 50. And here would be the 200. This move of these moving averages is what we want to see in a bull market. But that does not happen without all of this messy, painful consolidation. So that's set up for a bull market moving average move, which is what we want to see, right? And by the way, here's what it looks like last cycle. Cardano was so new, there was no 200-week moving average, but you see that 50's under the 20. That move only happens when we get all of this compression like we had back here. And that's what we're getting right now. It's just straight up compression. So that shock, the bears being shocked by the bulls is very much in play right now when you're looking at the Cardano charts. And it's a matter of patience. I know altcoin holders did not get their 20x, right, on time, right at that 4-year cycle area. But we're in a new era, everybody. We're in a new cycle. We have to evaluate business cycles and lagging effects. And if you're a macro-minded investor anyway, this is just how the macro game works out. So these are some of the things I'm tracking on the charts. Let me know what your thoughts are. I appreciate you watching. I hope you're having a good weekend. Hit the subscribe if you're not a subscriber. If you enjoyed this content, please consider giving it a like. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.